Hey viewers, today on Come Together, I am talking to David Dudley, one of the co-founders of Seek Ye First Apparel, and we're going to sit down and talk a little bit about his company, and then we're going to get into it about men of color in our community. All right, so come on and sit down, relax, and check us out after the opening. I will be back, excuse me, with David Dudley.
This is the greatest game of telephone that has ever been played. Someone said the black man doesn't raise his kids or care for his family, and that message is still being told to everyone today. They even have us saying,
We are not a monolith. We have various opinions and thoughts. We are much more than what we are portrayed to be by the media.
even when we are the victims of injustice, we are still portrayed as the perpetrators. When it comes to the black man, there is an intentional plan to discredit the past, arrest the present, and destroy the future.
Something must be done, but nothing will work until we come together. Hey viewers, today we are speaking to David Dudley of Seek Ye First Apparel, a native of Maryland, where I currently am, where it is snowing like crazy. I don't know what's going on out here today, but we're going to welcome David to the show. So David, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, so how you doing?
And I'm pretty good. I see you have on some of your apparel. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen you without it on. So I know I have to say that the dedication to your brand is great. I keep hearing people say, Brian, you got to push your brand. You got to push your brand. And when I see you, I remember it all the time because you're constantly pushing your brand. So break it down for the people and tell them about Seek Ye First.
Okay. Well, Seek Ye First was based on Matthew 6:33, which says, seek the Lord. Basically, seek ye first the kingdom of God, rather, and all of his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. We always see in award shows and sports entertainment where people always say, well, I thank God, or I want to thank God first for this. So
Right.
this was just our way of implementing the idea of reminding people to put God first in everything we do. That way we would do according to Joshua 1:8 and have good success in everything that we do.
Okay. So your clothing brand sort of is the new version of the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet. I mean, everybody
To an
had
extent.
that out for a long time. These look a little better. The sweatshirts and everything. What kind of stuff do you have? Tell them about the kind of apparel that you are selling right now with Seek Ye First on it.
Okay. Currently, we have crew necks, we have hoodies with the matching joggers. We also sell T-shirts, of course. We're implementing hats, from the dad hats to snapbacks, things like that. We're also branching out into other different forms of apparel. We have duffel bags that we're working on. We have a couple of those on the website now. Women's totes. And we're also thinking about branching out into just everyday accessories like water bottles and coffee mugs, things of that nature.
Okay, so you excuse me, you'll be everywhere. That's
Yes,
that's
sir.
that's good. I see you have these hoodie dresses, and
Yeah.
I saw someone else spoke to me the other day about their apparel, some new apparel they had, and they said, "Oh, we got hoodie dresses," and I was like, "Man, y'all can't copy Seek Ye First, man. Seek Ye First has hoodie dresses." So I didn't say
Thank you,
anything
sir.
to them. I just let it slide. I was like, "Because you're the first person I've seen with those." And I'm sure, just like everybody will always tell you, once you have an idea, it's important for you to jump on it because ideas come to everybody. You know,
Absolutely.
it's just not for us. And after we get one, if we can be the first to get out there, then it's good. But just be
Yes, sir.
guaranteed that that idea is going to drop on somebody else real soon. So you got to jump on it.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your brand. I have a few of your articles of clothing. I hope that our viewers will check it out. I know that you probably get around to churches and things like that because of the message of your brand, but it's weird because it's also urban.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the part that struck me. It was like, okay, we got an urban church brand. Can you give us a little information on that? What was the idea behind that?
Well, the first commission that Jesus Christ gave to the disciples, right, was to go into the world and preach the gospel. I think a lot of times in the church world, we get so caught up in the entertainment, the fanfare of what we do inside the four walls that we forget that our commission was to reach those who don't know Jesus or even are short-sighted on what he can bring to the table, what he can do for them. And even more so as we see now with the diminishing numbers in churches, people who experience church hurt. Um, so the idea was not just to bring a message to people, but to be able to do it in a fashionable manner, so people can wear it every day. They don't feel like that they're lacking in their style sense, if you will, or even with the modern trends that we see now. We want you to be able to wear something that represents Christ, but also represents your uniqueness and your personality, which is, I believe, a lot of the reason why God called us. My father used to always tell me, I grew up in kind of a, I grew up in the two-parent household, but I kind of wild out, if you will.
Yeah.
And my father, my father would always tell me that, the reason why God loves us the way he does and where we are is because it's the uniqueness of the person. God sees the character of you. He sees the things in you that he can use for his glory. And he's not going to diminish that. In fact, if anything, he just exacerbates it. He uses it to try to spread the message of hope to everybody on their level. And that's what we try to do with the clothing brand.
That's a big message. That's definitely different than the message I got when I was young. And I mean,
I
it's
understand.
it's a lot because there was no need for style in when I was young. I mean, it was just like, look, you just wear this to church, and then whatever.
Yeah.
And I see that as I've gone to different programs, and as I've emceed programs for people hosted, that church is not always the suit and tie place it used to be. Because I remember growing up in church, we still had our suit and tie on maybe in the afternoon or what have you, and I'm seeing people coming to church now, literally coming as they are, like it says, and comfortable. And I think that if you're going to a concert and you're going to end up jumping around or running the pews or whatever it is, you might as well be comfortable. I mean, let's not rip up your finest. because
Absolutely.
because something got wild. So it's a good idea, and I think it's good to also allow people to know that since back in the day, not back in the day, just years ago, the whole Trayvon Martin thing kind of made us feel like certain clothes meant certain things.
Yeah.
And when you see a young man in a hoodie, but now you have hoodies as you have with text on them. So this is showing people, look, this hoodie does not criminalize me. I can wear a sweatsuit and profess that I'm a Christian or profess that I'm somebody of good measure. So that's big. I think that there's a lot more that's probably going to come out of that for you than you might have even planned, because it speaks a story. When I was younger, growing up in the Bronx, if we were walking down the street, say at a late time of night or whatever, with my mom and my sister, and sometimes my little brother, if we saw people walking towards us, sometimes those streets get dark and hardly anyone out there. If somebody was walking towards us with a trench coat and a suit and a tie, we probably weren't worried about them.
Yeah.
But they can still rob us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it wasn't a clothing thing, but for some reason in our mind, it was like, okay, businessman, whatever. If we saw somebody with a hood on a Scully or, a bomber jacket or something, and they had a little swag to their step or something, it was cause for concern. I'm sure we all huddled closer together. And,
Absolutely.
As the time went on, we started to see what somebody has on has nothing to do with who they are inside, especially just the type of clothing. Now, maybe a clothing with a certain message on it, something might give you an idea. But you're breaking through some stuff, and I think that a lot of designers are starting to find that out. That urban wear is becoming common for all types of people. It's not a black thing anymore. It's not an athlete thing or just a b-boy thing, anything like that. It's comfortable clothes. People can do things in. People can relax. Get around. You can go to a little show and this and that. It's acceptable, and it's good. So I really applaud you for getting into that. As a designer now, do you find that there's any issues as far as getting into this industry? How have you broken in, or have you broken in yet? Are you still just doing word of mouth and website, or have you kind of broken into any of the industry?
Well, it's difficult to break into the industry simply because, especially during COVID, it seems like everybody all of a sudden popped up with a t-shirt brand. I
Right.
mean, if you go on Instagram now, everybody has a page, everybody's promoting a business, and it seems like to them the t-shirt brand was the easiest way to go. So we're still breaking into the mold, if you will. I think again, what separates us from a lot of those clothing designs is the fact that we have something that promotes positivity. It promotes a message of hope, especially in a very dark and scary time, which with everything that's going on with Ukraine right now, it just seems to get scarier. And I believe people are looking for a message that they can't always find when they log into, Facebook, or that they can see when they go into a building from 10 to 2 or 10 to 1. People need a constant reminder that there
Right.
is hope. Even with us, the way we carry ourselves as Christians, the Bible says to search ye the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life. And if you're really searching the scripture, it's a constant thing. It's something that you're doing daily. So it's just something that help promotes everybody to look daily into their Christian walk. What am I doing to exalt God? What am I doing to help my fellow man? So, yeah, we're still breaking down barriers, but I believe that those walls are coming down.
Okay. Okay. So, what is your main goal? What is your future goal? I mean, I understand your goal with your message and your ministry, but what's your goal for the company? Where do you want to get to, and that
Uh,
you'll be satisfied with the company?
I would like to turn it into a brand where my wife and I could live comfortably off of it. I mean, obviously, you want to be able to make a profit off of anything that
Right.
you invest in. I would also like to see it be a transformative thing where it's not just limited to clothing and apparel. We've often talked in times past where we would like to turn this into a full blown, perhaps ministry for people who want to come together and sit down and talk about, well, what does putting Christ first mean to you? How to apply those thoughts and and put it into action into their daily lives, so that we can not just make people buy from us, because we're offering a service obviously, but we want to also be of service. We
Right.
want to make sure that what we're doing is transformative, that's impactful, and at the end of the day we want to just be able to save lives and do what God called us to do.
All right. Good. Good. Sounds great. So, you grew up in Maryland. Um,
Between Maryland and Virginia, I was really young when I left Maryland. Yeah, the DMV area.
DMV area. So I'm as people know, I'm a New Yorker, and my mom was from Howard County, Maryland. So we were down here every summer, but not the kind of Maryland y'all know. We were in the sticks, but I mean, for real, no running water and all that stuff. But I mean, yeah,
Wow.
for kids from the Bronx, that was crazy. But I consider, even though it's across the Mason-Dixon line, I still consider Marylanders to be Northeasterners with us. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just the attitude, the feel.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a lot. New Jersey and Maryland, to me, y'all still a part of the clique as far as I'm concerned. So, growing up in this era, and I don't know exactly how old you are. I'm not going to put you on blast out here. I know you're younger than I am. But growing up in this era, what was the focus for you as far as the African American community? How was that processed for you as you grew up in the DMV?
Well, it was more of a try to, I guess, more or less try to unify our way of thinking. I was fortunate, especially in my high school days, to have met somebody by the name of Larry Davis. He had a program called Upward Bound, and
Right,
we were there for 6 weeks during the summer at Mary Washington College, and we would spend our time there not just prepping for college, but he also prepared us for life as Black men and women. So we did a lot of studying on poetry, about Maya Angelou. We did a lot of Paul Robeson stuff. He introduced us to not just the Black experience and limited it to HBCUs,
right,
but the kind of impact that African Americans made on the world at large. And when you come up in Virginia, especially in Maryland, you don't really hear about that stuff in school. You get your month. The month of February, Black History, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. They're like the only two Black people that did anything for Black people in the world, right?
right,
But that especially introduced me into a world of African American living that I had no idea even existed. I remember being as a youth how they badmouthed Malcolm X, but when you look into his history and what
right.
he really did, it was just impactful. So yeah, being Black in the DMV area is tough because you still have a lot of those racist ideas, especially down here. You know, you can see. I remember one time, I think it was a couple of years ago, you could ride down 95 and there's Confederate flags up and
Right,
down the road everywhere. And you think to yourself, how do you combat these ideals because they're as old almost as time?
right,
But thankfully, we were introduced to the kind of people that made us proud to not just be black, but to be proud to be a part of the history and the culture and having the impact that we do in our day-to-day lives that we weren't aware of, you know, when I was much younger.
right. I know that one of the biggest things that happened in this area that I considered to be very important was when they erected the statue and stuff of Martin Luther King out in
Yeah.
D.C. And I remember I was living in the South End in Nashville, but I made sure I got
Yeah.
up here just because,
It's a-
first of all, I didn't know how long it was going to last. So I was like, I got to get up here while it's
yeah.
around because I want to be a part of this history. I want to see this. But secondly, well, I wanted to see it. This sounds crazy to most people, but I wanted to see it while it was clean. You know,
Yeah.
it was brand new. I was like, I want to see it with the color that they made it, you know,
Yes, sir.
before it gets worn and all of that, you know, just experience it fresh and while people are still seemingly happy about it. Um, I feel you on what you're saying. There was a lot that it seemed that we didn't get when we were young. I think I was a little more fortunate being in New York because I went to high school in Harlem, and
Oh,
Harlem
wow.
is one of the more positively blackest places you can be.
Yes,
And as
sir.
far as I was concerned, especially in New York at that time. And there was sort of a family essence in Harlem. And I was from the Bronx, but when I would go to Harlem, I felt it. You know, if I was walking down the street, there were old ladies nodding their head hello to you and stuff. And you know
Yeah.
about the Renaissance. And, you know, there was always something going on that reminded you that black people were doing things. You know, you got the
Yeah.
Apollo there, you got all these things going on. We're not far from at my school from Alvin Ailey stuff, and you know, just a lot of things that were going on. But I always felt like there were kids who didn't live in areas like that, and what were they going through? What was making it big for them? Because we, even with all of that, I still didn't know I had a responsibility
Yeah.
as a black person.
Yes,
I
sir.
just saw all of this stuff. It was life. It wasn't until I went to college and started talking to some guys about what was going on. I was like, really? Like, oh, we're supposed to be in that? You know, so I had no
Yes,
idea.
sir.
And so
Yeah.
now at this age, this ripe old age, I'm reaching out to younger guys and trying to establish just a rapport to let people know that everything you've heard or everything you've seen about black men that's negative is not necessarily the truth. It might be true about 4 or 5 of us or even more of us, but that's
Yeah.
the case in every race. You know,
Absolutely.
there are criminals in every race. And it's actually, as we look at the stats and everything, it's not where we have just an exorbitant amount of people doing these things. It's just that it's promoted more. And we seem to have caught on to that. So one of my questions for you is, do you think, well, I'll just let you tell me what you think about it. I've seen a lot of things that have been put on us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it seems like what's been put on us has also been taught to us, so we perpetuate it as well.
Yes, sir.
And it's sort of a chicken and the egg kind of thing now. We're like, is somebody doing this to us, or are we doing this to
To
ourselves?
ourselves. Yeah.
So where do you fall on that? What side of that argument, or even in the middle, where would you fall on something like that?
I think a lot of what's perpetuated, especially about African American men, is a responsibility of white media. They choose to depict us in a certain light because, as we all know, no matter how far back the era goes, negativity sells.
Right,
So it's easier for you to be able to promote a negative image to somebody. You go back to the days of when they were doing blackface, and use those negative images to try to promote a certain people. People believe that that's all you are. I believe over the years, especially once you get past like the days of the crack era, when hip hop became, you know, the new and now the most outstanding genre um, in our lifetime. Yes, I believe sometimes we are responsible for the images that we perpetuate because it's popular. A lot of people fall into it.
right,
Like I remember when I was young, I tried to get into music. You know, I tried to get into the rap thing or whatever the case might be. And the thing that caught people's attention wasn't your honesty. It wasn't your transparency. It was about how many people you shot. It was how much drugs you sold, how many women that you knew and ran through, you know. And because we keep perpetuating the stereotypes, you have another generation of black men who are doing the same thing in a much more open and vulgar way, and it's affecting black women in our society too, because they believe that they have to be this way or they have to accept this way of life for them to have any value. And when you place your value in anything other than yourself, you can never be happy, right? Because it's monetized. Anything that you can put a number on, you can never find true happiness in it because numbers are infinite. And
Right.
because numbers are infinite, you can never find the true happiness that you invested in. But when you reach back and start thinking about our culture, think about all the wonderful things we did in Africa, like even to this day, something as simple as the pyramids,
Right.
something that could never be replicated in human history
Right.
came from our background. And they've been trying to do it ever since. And when you
That's
instill that, when you empower people with that knowledge, then you help people to rise above it. But when you're constantly perpetuating the cycle of drugs, misogyny, even obtaining, like having, I have to have the best this, I have to have the latest and the
right.
greatest this, knowing that those things that we invest in turn out to be terrible investments in the long run, then you keep people underneath. But if you teach people how to, how to get into real estate, how to, there's something as little as like how to maintain your credit.
Right.
You change the landscape and the outlook on how people view African Americans. I think it's high time that we take a stand and stop perpetuating these ideas in media, in social media, and start bringing people to the forefront that are doctors, people who have gone to college and have exceeded in life and didn't
Right.
have to sell a dime bag to do it. But I believe it's a long way to go before we're able to get to a place in life where we can do that and do it successfully and do it as an acceptance in this country, especially acceptance
Well,
received
I,
in this
I
country.
definitely agree with you. I see so many little issues that sort of keep us back. And being somebody who grew up in the quote unquote ghetto, and
Yeah,
I don't live in the ghetto now. I've seen some transitional things. When you
yeah,
stay in one place, sometimes you only see that one thing. But when you move around, I went away to college, this, that, and the other. So started to learn like, hey, there's a lot going on. Some of it is the perception of those of us who haven't had the life,
yeah,
that poor life, and so I've listened to people say, well, these guys are doing this to themselves and this and other. And I'm like, it's yeah, drugs is a bad thing in our community. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, you don't have to sell drugs. And it's okay. So I grew up in the projects. I was broke for the most part. My parents weren't broke, but I mean, I didn't have any money, and
yeah.
I never sold drugs. Sure, but there was a couple reasons why. One, um, my parents didn't really let me out the house that much. So if I sold drugs, I just would have had them in the house. Um,
Absolutely.
Two, they didn't
Yeah,
really give me money like that. So if dudes didn't see you with any money at all, I mean, they wasn't gonna trust you with their money. Nobody ever even approached me. So just they knew, leave that kid alone. I looked,
yeah.
first of all, I looked like I was 9 until I was 17. So there wasn't nothing that happened for me in that right.
Understood.
But there are people. It's hard because there's some people who don't believe there are people who got trapped into this life, who there was
Absolutely.
nothing else for them to do. Yeah, there might have been something else for them to do. They could have just stayed poor and died or fell off or whatever, but they didn't want that. They wanted to succeed. And so they took a chance with something that was illegal. And some people got caught up, some people got out of it, some people died in the middle of doing it. Hip hop also, as you mentioned, has taken a bad light because everything ghetto now is
Yeah.
considered to be hip hop.
Hip
And
hop. Yeah.
I know for sure that wasn't true because I was alive before hip hop
Yeah.
and it was ghetto already.
Yes,
So
sir.
it was now the only reason that it seems to personify that is because this is the community that hip hoppers came from. I
Yeah.
mean, the South Bronx was almost saved by hip hop because it was just a horrible place for a while. And this music was born in the midst of a struggle of a people trying to survive in a burnt out, just desolate area of New York, an area that people still don't visit
Yeah.
when they go to New York. I hear people, oh,
Absolutely.
you've been to the Bronx? No, for what? You still don't go to the Bronx. And I mean, I'm from
Yeah.
there. I'm proud of the Bronx. I mean, go Yankees and all of that. But I yeah, exactly. BX. But
Yeah.
I can't understand how I grew up in some place that seems to be so bad but yet there are plenty of us, friends of mine, people that I've seen and known that came out seemingly unscathed. You know,
Yes,
Colin Powell was born and raised in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. You know, I mean, there are people who have gone all the way to the top, you know,
yes,
black, white, whatever. And so it's sad to hear when somebody says this is ghetto and this is the ghetto life and this is why people are held back and this and other. They swear that there's no dads in the ghetto. My dad was in the ghetto.
yes,
I know a bunch of guys' dads. You know, there. The problem is that your mom. So if you lived in the projects where I lived or in the area in that part of New York, your mom could have gotten more assistance if your dad wasn't there.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it wasn't just that some dads were leaving. Some guys were leaving to help their family because that's what was making it better for them. You know what I'm saying? Or they'd come around once a month or once a couple of months because they didn't want to get caught living in the apartment because now the apartment costs only $50 a month or whatever, you know? And so it seems like there are things, and it's hard to battle and it's hard to judge. And that's what I'm trying to get across is that when we judge people for their actions, we don't realize sometimes that there's sometimes almost legislation to make them have to act in this way because they make a choice and they make the choice that they think is best for them. And so my goal is to really explode on the scene with information for people so that not just the people who are living in low areas can see and can get a chance to do better, but so that the people who are living in supposedly better areas and stuff and have these judgments can realize, oh, wait, that could have been me. You know what I'm saying? I can't really judge that behavior. If I was in that predicament, I might have done something similar. So, you know, schooling, all of that, all of us went to school. I mean, I don't remember not going to school. You know, the kids on our block in the morning, we was all outside going to catch the bus or catch the train or walking to school. It's what it was. And so education, even though education is supposed to be the key, a lot of people got educated and still were still in the same predicament. Would you say it was the same way here in Maryland as you were growing up?
Yeah, a lot of the guys that we celebrated in our neighborhoods weren't necessarily the guys who went to college and made something of their lives. The guy that I remember when I was a kid, the thing that got me hooked into, I guess, that form of life. There was a guy who used to cut my hair named Tyrone. I won't put his last name out there for, you know, I have my reasons. But I would go down the street. Yeah. I would go and get my hair cut by this guy just about every week or whatever, even to the point where sometimes getting my hair cut just turned into staying there and having a beer, things like that. And my father would be like, David, don't go over there. You know, those guys are no good. And he didn't know that, you know, I was a little version of him. So I know what my father was like when he was younger. So if you put me around those kind of people, that's what I gravitated to. And, you know, him and his friends, they had, you know, the flashy cars, the nice jewelry, you know, they could buy whatever they wanted. And it kind of shrank my scope on the world because I did have good people around me that were trying to teach me, you know, they would go to college, do this, do that, and third. And a part of me was very drawn to it. But it's something about something that's immediate, something that's tangible that threw off my entire scope. So I found myself being compelled to being around those guys and wanting to be like them and not understanding that the better way was really the better way. You know, I'm at an age now where I kind of envy the guys who had their head on their shoulders and went to college and, you know, made great things of their lives early, because the earlier I think that you achieve greatness, the earlier in life you get to actually enjoy it, you know. So once you get into a mindset when you're younger, again, if you teach children the grand scope, the big picture of things, I think that they'll make better choices in life in general. But when all that's presented to them is all that's around them, you know, it shrinks your worldview and you go after that which is immediate and that which is tangible. You know, so yeah, it was definitely a thing where we celebrated the guys that beat up everybody, the guys that had the chunky chains, you know, and the pinky rings.
Right. I mean, there wasn't a lot to celebrate in the ghetto. So I mean, once you saw something positive, it was like, okay, cool. That seems positive to me. I don't know how he got that. I don't know that it's an ill-gotten gain. I just know that it's a gain. You know, I remember friends of mine would come to my block to see the new cars, and I lived in one of the poorest parts of New York. But why did you see the new cars there? Because that's what drug dealers were, and they had all the hot cars, and I would see stuff all the time. I remember those. I don't know. I'm a little older than you, but when those skirted out Maximas came out,
Oh
It was
yeah,
crazy.
the box style Maximus, yes
Yeah,
sir.
and we're like, wow, okay,
Yeah,
that's what we wanted. And they're like, I'll be like, my dad's like, you want one of those? And that's a drug deal card. I'm like, and like, I mean, that's what's hot, dude. What's wrong with you?
yes
I didn't
sir.
even know cars had skirts, but I know now, dude. And it was a lot. And
Yeah,
it's strange now because when I go back to, I'm always drawn to that area when I go back to New York, and there's no reason for me to go over there. I have nothing there, but when I go back and I walk through the neighborhood, I remember my brother and I walked through, and I don't know if you know about projects, but once you're
yeah,
gone for a while, you don't belong there. I mean,
yeah,
it's just like it's like the beginning of that bad Michael Jackson video. I mean, you nothing.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? You're not,
yeah.
you
You're
know,
not from here, yeah,
yeah, you're not from here no more. So
yeah,
we I had walked through there by myself before, but I was walking with my brother, and I think that because I was with my brother and people used to see us together, that people was like, "Hey, what's up, y'all?" And I was like,
yeah,
oh, "What's going on? Like, you're not gonna kill me? Okay, cool, cool." Because people was walking up on you, you don't do that. So it was
yeah,
it was cool to see people that still knew who we were and everything, but it was sort of there was no braggadociousness about us, like, oh, we got out, we did this and that. They was like, no, what's up, man? How you doing? And it's something that I think most of us we sort of say it doesn't happen, but it has to happen.
yeah.
I am not the guy I was when I grew up there.
Yes, sir.
I'm different. I've gone to school, I've lived places and had different experiences that some of the people who live there may never get.
Yeah,
It doesn't make me better. It just makes me different. And I
yes,
think
sir.
that a lot of us think in our minds, especially if we grew up in a rough area or in an urban area, and that's still me. And it's like,
Yeah,
nah, that's not. You might still have the lingo, you
yeah,
might still have the walk or whatever, but it's not. It's not you. You have a different mindset. So I think that most of my friends think the same way I think, and they haven't had some of the experiences to change some of their thoughts. And so I'm looking to find people who can say, all right, well, now that we've changed this mindset, how can we go back and do something to bring up the mindset of our brothers and sisters? Not to say, hey, you need to be like me, but to
yeah,
sort of give them an experience that allows them to understand what's happening. Because there's a lot of things that I didn't understand that were happening for me
yeah,
living in the projects. I didn't know that the ghettos had been designed a certain way to keep us there. There's a whole lot of things that I learned from being in college and in grad school and things like that about just the whole setup of the city and why the blacks and Hispanics all live in this area and
yeah,
everybody lives somewhere else. There were no white people anywhere near where I lived,
yeah,
unless it was a cop. That's all I would see. It's so many
yes, sir.
different things that I didn't know anything about. It was just life. And
Yeah.
so what do you think is going to be the thing that helps us get to that point where we can actually educate our brothers and sisters? Because everybody says education is the key, and schools are there, but I think people are just getting schooled and not being educated. So,
Educated,
what do
absolutely.
you think? What do you think we need to go with that?
I think we're on the right trend now. In all actuality, these kids have the fortunate, uh, they're the fortunate, I guess the fortunate way of upbringing where they're in the information age. So everything they need to know is basically at the push of a button. I was fortunate enough to work in a school system for a couple of years as an IT guy, networking guy, and you see in their eyes that they don't see colorism, racism the same way we do.
Right,
They think less of it because their interests are more of a worldview.
right,
A lot of these schools are starting to become more involved as far as how they deal with how to deal with racism, how to deal with different people's cultures and nationalities. Like the school, for instance, that I've worked with, you had your Muslims there, so they would recognize Muslim holidays.
right,
Kids were allowed to wear their garbs and cover themselves and things of that nature. And I think because we're starting to foster those ideas in the younger generation, that they're starting to break down those barriers slowly but surely.
okay,
The only thing I think that might be a deterrent to them is that we're in a generation currently, especially after this past administration,
right,
where those idealisms are starting to awaken in older Americans. So
right,
now again, we're back to a place where we're promoting hate, we're promoting separatism, And my prayer is that hopefully it doesn't matriculate down to them to the point where the freshness of who they are and them trying to unify doesn't change by the time that they're in places where they can make impactful
Right.
decisions in law and in the world in general. So I think that we're trending toward that direction. We just need more people in areas like schools and in even just local areas where, like kids are more influenced, like social media
Right.
influencers. It shouldn't always be about the newest TikTok dance. It should be a way of elevating people to understand the world view and to see that things are bigger than your corner. You know.
That's true. That's true. I mean, man, that's good. That's definitely good. I didn't know you worked in the school system, and if you worked in the school system, you definitely know that it's a big difference from when we were in school. I have no idea. Sometimes there are good things and there are bad things, and they're both extreme. I don't I don't know
Absolutely.
what's going on. I mean, I'm lost some days, and it's funny that some of the kids look at me and they're like, Mr. Watts, you know what's going on? I'm like, nah, I don't know what y'all are doing. Like this,
Yeah.
I know what's going on, but I don't want a part of it, and I don't understand where y'all are. And I think the fact there's two things that happens to me from saying that. One is I realize I'm old, and I mean, people can say, "Oh, you're not old." I'm like, no, no.
No, we're old, bro.
Speak like my parents. Well, I don't know what y'all listening to. All those songs sound the same. And I'm old. That's it. It's over for me as far as that's concerned. But the other thing is that I hear the voices of my teachers and the older people that I used to try to block out. And obviously it made it in there because I hear it all the time. So, when I see a very smart young lady in my school come to class and she's with the guy who's doing nothing with his life, I'm like, and I don't want to say anything because one, it's none of my business, but two, I remember teachers saying, get away from that dude. He ain't doing his life. You don't need to be. I'm not doing that. But I see what you're talking about now. I understand totally, and it's so weird to come full circle like that and like, wow, this is a mess. So I try to instill, whatever I can in the young guys. But the most that I want to do, because you're right, they do have everything at their fingertips. The problem is that because they got so much at their fingertips, sometimes they're not using it.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so much available to you. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do this. And I think we had a lot more available than our parents did as well, but nowhere near as much as they have now because time and technology is changing. Just like right now, like I could buy something today and tomorrow it'd be obsolete. And you're like,
absolutely.
Wow. Okay, I just bought the new iPhone. Like, yeah, but there's a newer one. Like, okay, wait a minute. So it's happening fast. And I think that maybe it might be too much sometimes for them to even keep up with because this is their life. They're not looking at it as how great it is because it's just life to them.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know. If our grandparents had seen us going to school with kids of different ethnicities and this and other, they're like, oh, that's great. We're like, why is that great? That's just what we do. We don't know anything about that. So I'm looking to I want to get something together, and this has been a thought of mine that where we can get various businesses and maybe Black-owned businesses or businesses that are owned by other people as well who want to contribute and actually go to communities and schools and speak to kids on a real level. Not that stand up on the stage and talk to you and then never come back again, or I just tried to motivate you for 20 minutes, but I didn't really get down in it with you. I mean, there are some motivators who are really good at getting into it with kids, and some people are very separate and they can tell the difference, but I really want to get a crew of people who have been there, and go, especially for our guys. And I mean, a lot of people say, well, Brian, why do you pull separate from guys and ladies? It's a women's movement right now. And I'm really open to a women's movement. There's a lot going on for women of color and women in general. And I think that that's great. I think that whoever started that, I mean, Me Too is a great movement. I'm upset that it even had to happen, but because of the way life was, it had to occur. But I think that there's never really been a strong and consistent push to keep Black men accountable, men of color accountable. And so that's what the show has been started for. And that's what I really want to get out there and just, and whether it's people who can come once in a while or whatever, I want to get out there and really get into that, because I think that if we don't educate sooner or later, we will be educated only by the things that are being said.
Absolutely.
We will be educated by the fact that Black guys don't go to college, they just go to jail, or Black guys don't take care of their kids. So when you start to hear that as a young person, why would you take care of your kid if that's not expected from you,
Absolutely.
and you're not realizing that wasn't even true in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All we're doing is sitting at home and smoking weed and playing video games. And I'm like, okay, and even little things, like when I hear comedians say stuff and they're talking about swimming, Black people don't swim. I'm like, I know a whole bunch of Black people who swim. Why are you saying it? And so these little things that Black people don't do become the way people learn, because now people are learning from media. So if all of our kids are learning that Black kids don't swim, none of them are trying to go to take swimming class. None of them are going to the pool. Nobody's going to do all of this stuff. So we're creating the thing that we said. We're making the stereotype true. We're doing like what's it called? Billie Jean, making the lie the truth. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a rough thing for us. So what do you think about that? Do you think that business owners such as yourself and other people who have little things that they can contribute, how could we, or do you even think that we should just all get together and say, hey, I got this time, so let's put that time in there and let's put this in there and let's get around the country and talk to young brothers and sisters and everybody and just try to educate them on what needs to happen, because I think a lot of them are thinking it's easier, but like you said, the last administration showed us there's still a bunch of people out there who want it to be way back like it was, way back.
60s. And I think it's necessary because I think a lot of times with kids, right? Kids only go as far as their value will take them. So once you start teaching, especially Black men, about their value and their worth and their contribution to society, I believe it starts to grow them in such a way where the things that are actually negative, like drug dealing, like, aspiring to be entertainers and, pontificate about bees and hoes, you know what I'm saying? Instead of having that as just the only option to them, you show them that there's a better way. People aren't always going to believe what you say, but they're going to believe that when you show them something that they can ascertain it. So yeah, absolutely. I think if it wasn't for somebody like the Larry Davis in my life or Mr. Jones, who, did something as small as he saw me in 10th grade, being just a regular English class, bumming around. He recognized the work that I did and was like, you don't belong here. You belong in an honors class. So he pushed for me to, to be in those classes and whatnot. And those people are the difference makers in our communities. They don't always get heralded for it. They don't always get the trophies or the recognition they deserve for it. But I believe that a part of what makes us who we are, not just in the world or the church world rather, but in the world in general, is the gifts that we've been given don't belong to us. They're to be given away. So if we were gifted with the ability to grow a business, if we were gifted with the ability to motivate, to be motivational speakers, to be people of color who have exceeded in every field, in every aspect of every field that we see white America do on a regular basis. If we've been gifted in such a way, then the gift that we've been given is to be given back, to be returned back to the source. And how we return it back to the source is what we do to invest it in our next generation. So it's very necessary that we take the tools that we have to help grow them as well.
Well, that's great. That's great. I want to thank you for real for coming on the show. When I met you, online, I was like, this is an intelligent guy, and then met you in person. And I was like, okay, cool. It still seems that way. That's cool. So we'll definitely get him on the show. And, the thing is, you can be as intelligent as you want for these kids, but if you don't have something, sometimes they're not going to see you. And what you have right now is a great brand and everything. So I think that, that's a way to sort of, it's something that you need. Sometimes for some kids, you got to shine a light on something for them to come over and check it out. And I think you have that. Tell everybody how they can get Seek Ye First clothing and stuff like that. Let them know where they can check it out.
Okay. You can check us out at seekyeFirstClothing.com. That's our website. You can also find us on Instagram, and that's SYF_6.33. You can also find us on Facebook, and that's just SYF space 6:33. So right now you can find us there, and we're looking to expand it a couple of local stores. So be on the lookout for that too. We'll advertise that on our social media as well.
Cool, cool. Well, David, thank you so much for coming out. Please tell your beautiful wife I said hello. And
Yes,
listen, we'll definitely keep in touch with you. As we start to do things, I don't want this show to just to be a show on YouTube that comes on and people watch. I want this show to grow into some action. So definitely be keeping you in mind as we move towards that. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I
Thanks a
appreciate
lot.
you.
Talk to you soon, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for being with us today. I spoke with David Dudley. I had a great time speaking to him. Very good young man. And I hope that his brand is very successful. Definitely want y'all to check it out. I have 2 of his sweatshirts, and they are very comfortable and are very nice. So go ahead and check Siki first out and get some apparel from them. I definitely want to remind you to subscribe and to like the channel and to come out every week. We start on Monday. Every show is put on Monday, but the shows are there for however long YouTube allows us to keep doing this. So, check them out, look at the old episodes, tell your friends, and come by and support. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great week.